Kirtan. Very nice. What's your name? Sarvatma Nimai. Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna. Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava. Microphone on this. Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai. Put it right here. Yeah. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Gopi Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Girivardhari Jai Girivardhari Jai Girivardhari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiro Vanachari Jamuna Tiro Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama. Sri Radha Madhava ki jai. Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shatta Shri Srimad Abhay Charna Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. I'm so happy to see all of you. One thing, I had a birthday a little more than 1 month ago, turned 69, and so I was thinking, I'm the same age that Prabhupada was when he arrived. You know, when he got on the Jaladuta, a few days into the journey was his birthday, 69th birthday. And I was always thinking, since I joined, I was really young, 18 years old, when I joined the temple and stayed brahmachari for 10 years. And after I got married, my wife is a devotee. We never stopped. But the whole time I always thought my life should parallel Prabhupada's. And when I reach his age, I should do something, I don't know what, get on some kind of Jaladuta. So anyway, here I am. It's just the opposite. I came from America, and now I'm here. We'll see what happens. I'm here for 6 weeks, traveling all over India. No definite plan. I just meeting people, sharing about Prabhupada. I may be going to Rishikesh very soon. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Let's see. One devotee was talking about these two words, prachar and parivrajagacharya. Parivraj. So prachar means you're pushing something forward. You're going in a specific direction when you're preaching. Parivraja means like a circle. You're just kind of wandering. You have a purpose, but you're not really sure how it's going to come about. So when Prabhupada came to America, there was definitely, prachar. He had something in mind. He knew what he was going to say, but he had no idea how it was going to work out. When he landed in America and he walked around, he didn't know. He was just trying to understand more and more about it. He said for the first few months he was just loitering, just observing Americans, learning how to do this. So anyway, here I am. I'm an example of 69 years old. And I'm just thinking how Prabhupada went to a very foreign country. I've been to India before, so it's not so foreign. And people here speak my language. He was in a place nobody spoke Hindi. There were no Indian people. When I was a kid, I saw these people. The lady had a dot on her head, and I thought, that looks really interesting. She was wearing a sari, and I thought, that looks elegant. And her husband was kurta pajama. It seemed very elegant, but those are the only Indian people I'd ever seen. And I met Sali Agarwal. Does anyone know who Sali Agarwal is? Anybody? Yes. not only did he go to their house, she was the one that sponsored him, gave him passage to America. She was married to Gopal Agarwal from Agra. And so, anyway, Gopal's father met Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, I'm trying to go to the West. And he said, well, my son lives there. Maybe he can sponsor you. Prabhupada said, fine. And he didn't even remember the conversation. When the paperwork came in, said he was approved. He was like, where did this come from? So Sally was the American citizen. She was the one that signed the papers. So it's because of her that we're all sitting here today. We met her and we asked her, what was it like to be married to an Indian man back in the late 50s and the early 60s? And she said, there could not have been anything more strange. That was the most strange thing, to be with an Indian man in America, because there were no Indian people. A couple of professors, a couple of engineers, scientists. We asked how they met. Anyway, that's a whole story. It's a really good story. But we've got another good story here, Srimad Bhagavatam. So how did I get off on that? So Prabhupada was he was staying at their house, just observing how Americans live. She was the first person that he got to spend any time with and see how they live. Okay, so with all of that miracle that happened, Prabhupada coming to America, things falling into place. And while he was working all of these miracles all day long, at night when everybody else was sleeping, he was translating Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we go with text 15. We have it. It's coming. Okay. So Chapter 4, the sacrifice performed by Daksha. Chapter 7, text 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayat. So, here we go. Yosau Maya Vidita Tattvadrisha Sabhay. Yosau Maya Vidita Tattvadrisha Sabhayam. Yosau Maya Vidita Tattvadrisha Sabhayam. So this is Daksha speaking to Lord Shiva after Daksha had been punished with death. He died. And in this verse, he's going to say something really surprising. He's going to say, "Thank you for punishing me." So this first line is, by me, avidita tattva, without knowing the actual fact, avidita tattva, drisha, by experience, sabhayam. So in the sabha, in the assembly, next line, kshipto durukti vishikhar viganaya tanmam. Kshipto durukti vishikar viganaya tanmam. Okay, Lord Shiva, Kshipta, was abused, Durukti, with unkind words. Vishakai, by the arrows, Viganaya, but taking no notice of. Tan, that, mam, me. So you, although I was shooting painful arrows at you, you didn't even notice. So this is one of the things you never want to do, is to insult someone in an assembly, in some kind of shabha, in front of all kinds of people. When you do that, in the Panchatantra, have you studied Panchatantra? Anybody? Panchatantra? A little bit? There's the whole war between the owls and the crows. The crows were flying over, and they saw a big assembly of birds, a shabha. The birds were saying, "Why is Garuda the king? We never see him. He doesn't have anything to do with us. The owls are really intelligent. We should make the owls our king. They're right here. They can help us." But then the crow heard that, and he thought, well, this isn't very reasonable. And he gave lots of examples of how having a powerful king, Garuda, is going to be helpful. He tells the story of the bird who laid her eggs by the ocean. The ocean took the eggs back. The bird started to empty the ocean with her beak. The rest of the story is, when Garuda heard about this, Garuda came to the ocean and said, "You give those eggs back." Or actually, in the Panchatantra, Garuda doesn't even need to go. The ocean hears Garuda is going to come and take this up. So the ocean, out of fear of Garuda, gave the eggs back. So that was one of the reasons that the crows told. After his speech, everyone said, "Yes, you're right. We will keep Garuda as our king." The owls said, "You are my enemy now. There will be an eternal war against the owls and the crows." So there's chapters and chapters in the Panchatantra about their fighting, and you learn about diplomacy and politics and how to divide and conquer. But after that, the crow said, "I've learned my lesson. I should not speak up in an assembly. To discredit someone in an assembly is the worst thing you can do." But Lord Shiva, it says here, how is it worded? Durukti Vishakai Viganaya, taking no notice of. So he took no notice of that. When he was insulted, Lord Shiva just sat there, completely calm. Have you ever seen anyone do that when they're insulted in an assembly? When you see that, then you know you're seeing someone that has self-control. They're really in their core self. Things are not bothering you at all. Because you're going much deeper than these temporary false ego, ahankara designations. So viganaya tanmam. So you took no notice of these words spoken by me. Okay, third line. Oh, sorry. Arvak patantam arhatama nindayapad. Arvak patantam arhatama nindayapad. Drishyadraya sa Bhagavan Swakritena Tushyet. So Arvak, downwards, Patatam, gliding down to hell, Arhatama, the most respectable, Nindaya, by defamation. So he was saying, I was gliding down because of this mentality. Apat, but you saved me, Drishya, seeing, Ardradaya, out of compassion, Sa, Bhagavan, your lordship, Swakritena, by your own mercy, Tushyet, be satisfied. Swakritena Tushyet. So he's saying, what can I do to repay you? You've been so kind to me. There's nothing I can do to repay that. Swakritena Tushyet. You just have to be satisfied with your own mercy. So we'll read the translation. I know it's abbreviated, but here we go. I did not know your full glories. For this reason, I threw arrows of sharp words at you in the open assembly, although you did not take them into account. I was going down to hell because of my disobedience to you, who are the most respectable personality. But you took compassion upon me and saved me by awarding punishment. I request that you be pleased by your own mercy, since I cannot satisfy you by my words. Okay, purport. These first two sentences of purport are really, really good. You could build your whole life around these first two sentences. This is so good. As usual, a devotee in an adverse condition of life accepts such a condition to be the mercy of the Lord. Factually, the insulting words used by Daksha against Lord Shiva were enough to have him thrown perpetually into hellish life. But Lord Shiva, being kind toward him, awarded him punishment to neutralize the offense. Okay, that first sentence. As usual, as usual, a devotee in an adverse condition of life accepts such a condition to be the mercy of the Lord. How many times does this happen in the Bhagavatam? Again and again. And especially, fourth canto, it seems to be disagreements among devotees. We have this story. We have Dhruva and how he deals with his father mistreating him. What else? We have Prithu Maharaj with Indra disrupting his yajna. So in each situation, these are all like people that are supposed to be respectable people. I mean, Indra, he's the king of heaven. Of all the suras, he's supposed to be the best. But he's doing these things. And how does Prithu respond? At first, he responds. He retaliates. He tries to set things right. But then finally, Brahma comes and says, you can't do this. You can't punish Indra by killing him. That will disrupt the whole universal affairs. Please forgive him. And then Lord Vishnu comes and he says, I'm really pleased with you for forgiving him like this. Let's see. What else? Any other stories in here? Swayambhuva Manu. Oh yeah. Dhruva punishing the yakshas for having killed his brother. He's able to wipe out the whole race. But then, who was it? Swayambhuva Manu came to him. Is that right? Swayambhuva, and then there were others that came, weren't there? Okay, anyway, he was advised, you're punishing an entire race for the misdeeds of one or two people. Forgive them and let it go. Then Yaksha Raj, Kuber, came to him. And what did he say? He said, thank you. Thank you for punishing me. So that's just such an interesting thing. And no doubt we're going to face adverse conditions in life. We're going to go through so many things. And at first, we're going to want to retaliate. We're going to want to resist. And that's natural. And we should. We should take care of problems. But when we get to a point where it's obvious this is not everything I'm doing, it just seems to make the situation worse. That's when we realize Krishna is sending this, and then we thank him. Tatte nukampam susamikshamana punjana evatma kritam vipakam. So this mentality, tatte anukampam susamikshamana, are you all familiar with this? Everybody knows this one? How many do know it? Tatte nukampam punjana evatma kritam vipakam. This is saying that when you face adverse conditions and you just see that as mercy, kripa, this is Krishna's mercy upon us. He's actually helping us. And if you see it that way, then you're free. You've achieved mukti, moksha, in the good way. Good kind of moksha. You're free. Nothing's going to bother you. Things will hurt still, but having that mentality will help us survive a lot of the problems in life. When Prabhupada was preaching here in India, somebody was arguing with him, and he said, Arjun was not a good devotee. Arjun was not very advanced spiritually because he became sad when his son died in the war. Arjun became angry, he became sad. And so this man said, Arjun's not an advanced devotee. So how would you answer that? What Prabhupada said was, it's natural if you become sad when your son dies. That's natural. You cannot take him down because of that. He lamented for some time, but then he took up service. He didn't let it stop him from serving Krishna. And Prabhupada said it with such conviction that the man said, you're right. And this man was really argumentative. But he had to admit, yes, that is the main thing. That's how we are surrendered to Krishna. Yes, we should be sad when things happen to us, when things affect our family. It's natural we become angry. But someone like Shiva, here in this verse, how was it? You're unaffected. Viganaya tanmam. Kshipto durukti vishikair viganaya tanmam. Durukti, with unkind words, vishikai, by the arrows. It's the most difficult thing to tolerate. If someone gives us physical pain, it hurts for some time. I grew up with two brothers. We used to fight. I remember punching each other. I mean, not in the face, but I remember always getting hit like that and like, all right, I'm going to get you back. Now it's my turn. And we were always in pain, but it didn't last. Like a couple hours or a day or two if it was really bad. But harsh words, they stay with you. There's later on in the Bhagavatam, part of the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna is saying, there's nothing more painful than the arrows of harsh words spoken by your family member. And now that we're all devotees, we're all family members. It really hurts when a devotee says something about you and you just can't get that out of your head. It hurts for weeks and months. Unless you're like Lord Shiva. It just rolled right off of him. So Krishna is saying that, and then Uddhava asks, are there any examples of anyone who is able to tolerate harsh words? So then Krishna tells the story of the Avanti Brahmin. And this Brahmin was very miserly. His own family members, he wouldn't give them anything. He wouldn't spend any money on himself. He couldn't even give a kind word to anyone. I mean, that's a valuable thing, if you could just say something nice to somebody. But he couldn't even do that. He was so miserly. So finally, as always happens, if you don't spend your money, eventually it just evaporates, it disappears. Bhagavatam says, either by thieves, by taxes, by time, it just disappears. If you don't use it, it's gone. He became so poor, and his family members said, we've had enough of this guy. Now he doesn't even have any money. Get him out of here. So he wandered around like a sadhu, but people recognized him and they said, he's not a sadhu. I know this guy. He's an awful person. His own family kicked him out because he's so awful. Don't give him anything. So it was really hard for him to survive by begging. Eventually people would give him things, and people were really rude to him. Children would sometimes tie him up and take him home and say, look, can I keep this as a pet? When he was able to beg some food and he was about to eat it, someone would come and urinate in it. This is right there in the Bhagavatam. So all of these awful things are happening to him. And finally, after being beaten down so hard, he comes to the point of saying, okay, now I understand. It's not due to my bad karma that I'm suffering. It's not due to my lack of money. It's not due to my financial, my material position. And when you read the verse, it's like, well, what does it due to? What's left? Anyone know that part? He says, it's only due to my uncontrolled mind. And then he speaks this verse, which is so powerful that our sannyasis chant this as part of their Gayatri mantra. When Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he recited this verse again and again. And now I can't remember it. But it's about, I will surely cross over the insurmountable ocean of material existence just by remembering you, Lord Krishna. What's the name of Krishna in that shloka? Anybody remember? Mukunda. Okay, does anyone remember the first line of that? Etam, thank you. Etam Paramatmanishtaya, yeah. What is it again? 11:23:57. 11:23:57. Yes. So he just realized it's only due to my uncontrolled mind that I'm suffering. All of these things are actually your mercy. Now that my mind is under control, go ahead. Just send me everything. I'm ready for it. This is a recurring theme throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, starting with Maharaj Parikshit. As soon as when he got home, after putting that snake around Shamika Rishi, what was his son's name? Was his Shringi? Yeah. So Shamika Rishi, it didn't bother him at all. He practically didn't even notice. But his son took offense, cursed the king. Meanwhile, when King Parikshit comes home, he's thinking, why did I do that? That was really bad. I hope I never do such a rude thing again. And I hope I get some punishment for this deed. And I hope it comes very quickly. And it's strong enough that nothing like this will ever happen again. And another condition he made was, I hope it doesn't touch my family. Because it's only me. I'm the only one that did this. So let it come quickly. Let it be strong enough. Let me learn my lesson. I met someone in America who just seemed like he was always well-dressed. He just seemed like such a boring person. I thought, this person has never lived life at all. Everything just looked perfect in his life. But then one day I was sitting with him and I noticed a tattoo on his arm of an hourglass with a chain on it. And I asked, what's the story behind that tattoo? And he said, I got it while I was in prison. And I thought, this guy in prison for what, a parking ticket or so I asked, what for? And he said, for murder. And he said, I'm from a family, a good family. My parents always took care of me. But somehow I got in with this group of people. And they were wandering around and they beat somebody up. The guy died. And we were all implicated. I had to go to prison just because I was with them. He said, while I was in prison, I was praying to God not to let me out or protect me. He said, I was praying to God, let me learn the lesson that I'm in here for. And he said, if I was praying for protection, I don't think I would have survived in there. But instead, send me some information. That's where he found Bhagavad Gita. And he started reading Bhagavad Gita. And that's what turned his life around. I mean, his life was already, he was a good, decent person, living, pretty pure life. He just got in with some bad people. So I wrote an article about that, and that's been distributed to a lot of devotee prison ministries about meeting this person and that prayer. So that's really what we're all about. So I'll read that first sentence of the purport again, and we're still going to go through the purport because I don't want to let that go by. As usual, a devotee in an adverse condition of life accepts such a condition to be the mercy of the Lord. I was reading this with a group of kids, 8 and 10-year-old kids. And when I read that verse, or this sentence, it's a little bit later, so I'll read that. We'll continue on. Factually, the insulting words used by Daksha against Lord Shiva were enough to have him thrown perpetually into a hellish life. But Lord Shiva, being kind toward him, awarded him punishment to neutralize the offense. King Daksha realized this, and feeling obliged for Lord Shiva's magnanimous behavior, wanted to show his gratitude. Sometimes a father punishes his child, and when the child is grown up and comes to his senses, he understands that the father's punishment was not actually punishment, but mercy. Similarly, Daksha appreciated that the punishment offered to him by Lord Shiva was a manifestation of Lord Shiva's mercy. That is a symptom of a person making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness. It is said, okay, here's the sentence. And when I read this 8-year-old boy said, "That's a really good way to think." And I thought, that's a really good way for an 8-year-old boy to think. It is said that a devotee in Krishna consciousness never takes any miserable condition of life to be condemnation by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He accepts the miserable condition to be the grace of the Lord. He thinks, I would have been punished or put into a more dangerous condition of life due to my past misdeeds. But the Lord has protected me. Thus I have received only a little punishment as token execution of the law of karma. Thinking of his grace in that way, a devotee always surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead more and more seriously and is not disturbed by so-called punishment. Did you see what Prabhupada did there? How he took that verse, Tatte Nukampam Susamikshamana, and he wove it right into his purport. When you learn these verses and you read Prabhupada's purports, you start to see how he does that. When we read Bhagavad Gita, we are studying the thoughts of God. When we learn these shlokas, we are incorporating those thoughts into our own thoughts. And you'll be surprised, after doing this for years and years and years, you're going to start thinking this way. This is our sadhana. This is our practice. How many were here yesterday for the presentation? Just a couple? With those, she opened it up and then there was another one inside and another one inside. So yeah, we want to get down to that one inside. That's who we really are. What's in the verse? Paramatmanishta. Thank you for looking that up. Yeah, the first line of that. Etam sa asthaya paramatma paratmanishtam. Paratma. And what does that mean, paratmanishtam? Is it paramatma or paratma? But it also means paramatma, isn't that right? Devotion toward Lord Krishna, yeah. All right. So, yeah, we have different layers. And I was thinking, when I meet others, when I meet a devotee, they always look saintly and so wonderful. And you get the first impression, and it's always good. And then when you get to know them a little bit, it's like, oh, he didn't do that right. Or there's some little, you see some little thing. But then you go a little deeper and you find, well, actually, it's because he's so focused on this. And there's a reason he does that. And then you go a little deeper and you find another problem. You go a little deeper and you find something really good. Deep down, everybody has something really incredible, amazing. Each of us. How's that go? Second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, some look on Ascharyavat Pashyata Enam, yeah. How does that go? Ascharyavat Pashyata Kashchidenam. Aha. So some look on the Atma as amazing, Ascharya. Ascharyavat Pashyati Kashchidenam. And then the next line. And so some people speak of the Atma, and some hear of him as being amazing. So some see it, some speak it, some hear it. And then what's the last line? Shrutvapi. Okay, and some people, even after hearing about it, cannot, yeah. So all of us, everyone is amazing. We all have some potential. This is something Prabhupada said. Nobody knows how much the illusory energy is keeping us from our true potential. And to arrive down to that, deep down who we are. This is our process. Simply hearing. In the Krishna book, introducing the Trinavarta chapter, Maharaj Parikshit asks a question. Or Maharaj Parikshit is making this statement, and Prabhupada translates it, that to hear about Krishna, to hear the pastimes of Krishna, is an opportunity to associate with the Lord. By this association, our true nature will evolve. And all of this comes about simply by hearing. When we read that, everyone in our group said, that's really good. We're going to memorize that. And so for a long time, we used to recite it. So to hear the pastimes of Krishna is an opportunity to associate with the Lord. By this association, we evolve our spiritual nature. And all of this comes about simply by hearing. So when sometimes devotees get into really complex things, I'm going to do this puja, I'm going to do this yagya, but really it all comes down to hearing. Stani stita shrutigatam tanuvan manobi. So when you know that shloka, you'll see how Prabhupada weaves that shloka into his purports. Stani stita. You don't need to change your social status. You don't need to take sannyas. Just stay where you are. Here. Stani stita shruti gatam tanuvan manobi. And you want to hear from people who are evolved, elevated. They know what they're talking about. And this is so powerful. This is Brahma speaking. He says, the Ajita, unconquerable Lord, will become conquered. You'll be able to conquer God. So, Ascharyavat Pashyati Kashchidenam. So that's amazing. That's our Shakti that we have. And this is how we access the Shakti. Lord Chaitanya was going all over India, meeting different people, and his icebreaker was, he would ask them one question with two parts. What is the sadhya and what is the sadhana? What is the goal? And what is the process to achieve that? This was in his discussion with Ramananda Roy, and then the Tattvavadis. Who else? Anyway, you get the idea. Wherever he went, he would ask people that. And so that's our sadhya, and that's our sadhana. So I guess I should open up. We got a few minutes. If anyone would like to say anything. And I did get through the purport. This is such a good purport. We have a reading group. We've been meeting every night for 6 years now. Hour and a half, reading, discussing. Our format is someone will read the verse, the next person reads 2 sentences, the next person reads 2 sentences. So I'm always stopping and saying, wait a minute, what did he just do there? Did anybody see that? And then we talk about it, or it gives everyone a chance to recognize and appreciate what Prabhupada has done. And some of his best writing, Prabhupada said, was done right here in Delhi. His first canto, the first volume, he said, I put everything in the first canto. And the first volume, he said, I really put everything into that. So, for those that live in Delhi, you can take patriotic pride in Prabhupada's first canto, Bhagavatam, because it was conceived and produced here in Delhi. But you know all of that. You probably have it memorized by now. Okay. Hare Krishna. Any discussion? People always want to know, how did I meet Prabhupada? That's always the story. I was 18 years old, done with high school, so I was free to do anything. I lived in California, and I decided that I would hitchhike to a foreign country. I would go to Mexico. So hitchhiking, used to see it in India a lot. People would just, you make a signal, give me a ride if you've got room. What do? You go like that? In America, you just stand on the road with your thumb out like this, and that's the sign. If you have room, give me a ride. And so I hitchhiked 500 miles, 500,000 kilometers. Went to a town called San Diego. My ride let me off there. And there was a park full of young people that were like me, just hitchhiking around. A lot of people were doing things like that in America. This was 1975. If I had known, I would have just gone to San Francisco. Prabhupada was there for the Rath Yatra. I just missed it by a few months. But anyway, in San Diego, I met people, and they said, we are going to the Hare Krishna temple because there's free food there. So I went. There was a kirtan, there was a lecture, and there was also someone that I recognized. He was my mother's cousin, Uncle Charlie, who also, just like me, had long hair and a beard. And because of him being there, it made it a lot more interesting. Otherwise, it was all brahmacharis with shiny, clean-shaven heads. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, but I'm not that interested. But because Charlie was here, he talked with me. I stayed at his house a couple nights. And he gave me magazines, Back to Godhead magazines. I read his Bhagavad Gita, and I decided, all right, I'm going to go back home, spend a week or two, and then go to the temple where I can study this Bhagavad Gita more deeply. Because of the Sanskrit, because it just looks so fascinating. So I went to the Berkeley Temple. I hitchhiked there. And I just said, I'm going to stay for the weekend. They said, fine. After that weekend, it was so good, I decided, I'll stay for the next weekend. And the next. And so we just stayed on. This was in October of 1975. Prabhupada had been there at the Berkeley Temple just a few months before. But I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't ready. It wasn't time. Then the next year, 1976, in June, they said, all right, get in the van. We're driving to Los Angeles. And so a few other new guys, we got in the van. We drove to Los Angeles to greet Prabhupada. And the Los Angeles Temple, beautiful place. I was wondering, how do they do this in the midst of such big city like Los Angeles? Los Angeles had a reputation for polluted air at the time. It was really bad. Why would anyone want to go there? But while we were driving down, one devotee said, if with each breath you chant Hare Krishna, then the pollution will not affect you. So I thought, that makes sense. But it didn't work. When I was in LA, we went out for kirtan out on the streets, and I danced like we always did. And I didn't feel good. It was pretty bad. But anyway, Los Angeles, they did make all kinds of restrictions, and it has cleaned up quite a bit. It is possible to clean up the air, just like it is possible to purify our consciousness. Each car driving on the road, everyone's putting out just a little bit, and they think, it's just a little bit. But there's an accumulation of a little bit. And every time we have a thought that's against Krishna, there's an accumulation. So we want to try to promote healthy thoughts, pure thoughts. Gradually, our thoughts will become pure. It will become habitual. Like Prabhupada starts the purport, as usual, a devotee in an adverse condition accepts such condition to be the mercy of the Lord. So, as usual means it's by practice. You see it in others, and you think, "This is good. I want to be like that." So, in Los Angeles, we were there serving in the temple, and then they said, "Get in the van. We're going to the airport." And we drove to the airport, got in the concourse, and there was Prabhupada walking in with hundreds of devotees. Prabhupada looked so beautiful, so colorful. He had just come from Hawaii, where he'd been translating. He just finished the 7th canto. He was starting on the 8th canto. Everything about us, we're connected to Prabhupada through the books. I know this because he writes at the completion of the 7th canto, he says, this was completed in the Honolulu temple, May 1975, gives the date. Then he begins the 8th canto, and in that 8th canto he says, I met my spiritual master. He asked me to publish books. He tells like his whole life story practically in the introduction to the 8th canto. And then he says, now I'm beginning the 8th canto, so all of the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cantos, I pray to my spiritual master for the strength to continue this work and to complete it. So when he arrived in Los Angeles, he didn't look like he was having any health problems at all. He just looked, he was beaming, smiling, seeing all of the devotees and flowers on him, garlands, and he was taking them off and handing them out. You know how you have the moving floor in the airport? One's going this way, one's coming that way. So Prabhupada was on this one, and the floor that was moving this way, the kirtan just jumped onto that one, and they were running. Anybody that was coming this way, too bad. The devotees, and you'll see it in the pictures, there are devotees on this moving floor. Prabhupada's here. Prabhupada's just looking relaxed, and the devotees are there singing. Their eyes are wide open, looking at Prabhupada. And I looked through all of those pictures, and I'm not in any of them. Somehow, I don't have any pictures with Prabhupada, but I was there. So we saw him in the airport, then we rushed back to the temple, and we got to greet him there again. As he got out of the car, devotees blew conch shells, they threw flowers, and up above the doorway is a window. Ladies were up there throwing flowers on Prabhupada. As he walked in, kirtan, walks across the temple floor, to the deities, Rukmini Dwarkadish in Los Angeles, called New Dwarka. This was his world headquarters for a long time. Devotees from around the world were sent there to learn how to run a temple properly. And everything was so good. So he bowed down to Gaur-Nitai, and I wanted to bow down too, but there were so many devotees. There was no room. So I just stood there and watched Prabhupada getting up so gracefully and carefully, and then standing up and walking to Rukmini Dwarkadish. And I thought, I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to watch him. So I watched him bow down Rukmini Dwarkadish, then Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra, just like here. You guys are... Was that by chance, or was that the intention? Then he got on that Vyasasan. And so it's so... Whenever I go to that temple, I just think of him stepping up those steps and sitting down. And you can think of that here. If Prabhupada were to come, he would walk in, offer obeisances, take parikram, and then come and step up there and sit down, pick up his kartals, and sing Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. So I got to hear him sing Jai Radha Madhava, and that was hairs standing up. I'm like, wow. But watching him, I was thinking, I don't know what to think, I don't know what to do. There he is. That was all I could think of, is there he is. And so many devotees before had told me, as soon as I saw Prabhupada, I knew this was it. But I was just thinking, there he is. It's really the books that had the effect. And that's available and accessible to everyone. Hearing about Prabhupada, reading his words. Last year when I was in Vrindavan, I was sitting in Prabhupada's room, and everyone there, you're looking at all of his things, and you just want to feel Prabhupada's presence. He's such a powerful person that just some little, you get a little smell of him, something that he touched, something that he did. So inside of the glass cases, you see his razor, his towel, his socks, all of these things, and devotees are looking at those things like, all right, you want to feel his presence somehow. So in the morning, everyone's in there chanting japa, it's quiet, and then I noticed some people pointing at me and nudging each other, and I thought, okay, I'm just like one of those things in Prabhupada's glass case. I'm like his toothbrush or something that was used by Prabhupada. So something that Prabhupada has created. So somehow I came in to his association, and we got to do service for him just by distributing his books and hearing from him, hearing about him. So just because of that, I have something. And that's all I can offer. So then Prabhupada gave a lecture while I was there. It was so good. It was the 6th canto. Do you want to hear about this? Is this going over time, or you want to hear? It was the 6th canto, Ajamil. The Vishnudutas had appeared, and the Yamadutas were asking, who are you guys? What are you doing here? And then the Vishnudutas are responding. And it's part of the verse, it says, Vasudevokta Karina. that we are here, Vasudev Ukta Karina. We are doing what we are told to do by Vasudev. But first it said they just smiled. They simply smiled, and then they replied. So Prabhupada started off his class. It wasn't a very long class, just a little bit over 15 minutes. But it was so powerful. Each, building a point, moving to the next point, and devotees were so attentive. It was such a powerful class. Vasudevukta Karina. That is our assignment. We do whatever Vasudev says. This is what the Vishnudutas are doing. And he kind of implied, you are all like Vishnudutas. The day before he gave a class, it was the Yamadutas speaking. And the Yamadutas were saying, we have heard this from Yamaraj. Because they were asked, what is Dharma? And so they replied, Dharma means, and we have heard this from Yamaraj. And so Prabhupada said, Yamadutas are not very civilized people. They're not very good looking. They're not even humans. But because they have heard from an authority, they can speak such high knowledge. So he was saying, all of you are hearing from an authority. So therefore, you can reply. So in a sense, it was comparing us to Yamadutas and saying, you're not even human. But if you simply quote what Yamaraj has said. So then the next day was the verse of the Vishnudutas replying, because they were asked, who are you? What are you doing here? And so Prabhupada said, he was speaking on that theme, Vasudevukta Karina. And he said, similarly, sometimes we go places and people ask, what are you doing here? And we simply smile. The way Prabhupada said it, it was like, we simply smile. So he said, you should, if you are doing Vasudevukta Karina, you should have no fear. You should be fully convinced you're doing the best thing and that you will be protected by Vasudev so long as you follow the principles. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. So he goes through all of these things. Become my devotee. Manmana, think of me always. Bhava mad bhakto. So who's going to think of Krishna but the devotee? Madhyaji mam. And worship me. And he says, just like we are saying, chant Hare Krishna. Always remember Krishna. Become his devotee. Namaskuru, bow down to me. So he says, so he talks about that, and then he says, so Krishna says that, we say that, I say that, you should say that. And then toward the end he says, he gets really excited. You do these 4 things only. Meaning, manmana, bhava madbhakto, madhyajimam namaskuru. Do these 4 things only, and then he leaned into the microphone. He said, it is guaranteed. He shouted it, and back home, back to Godhead. And then all the devotees cheered, and then he said, thank you very much. And then they cheered again, even louder. So I was there for that class. You can look it up. Los Angeles, June 1976, maybe June 6, somewhere around there. All right. Last chance. Anything else? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Bhakti Priya Nirguna.